Thank you for your interest in monarch butterfly conservation. My name is Kelly Bodensteiner, and this is a PowerPoint presentation that I put together to help educate people about saving monarch butterfly lives and what that takes. Monarch butterfly conservation consists of a number of different areas. I'm going to talk about the plight of the monarchs, the life cycle of the monarchs, the importance of milkweed, the migration of monarchs, what we can do to help the monarchs, how to raise monarch caterpillars at home, and what we do here at Croixdale in our conservation programs. Scientists are noticing steady decline in monarch populations. These counts have dropped significantly since the mid-1990s, estimated most recently at about 80%. Have monarchs been labeled as an endangered species? The answer is no, not yet. In December of 2020, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service announced that listing the monarch as endangered or threatened is warranted, but precluded by higher priority actions at this time. So they recognize that it's important, but there are other priorities that are taking precedence at this moment. So that leaves it to us to do something about it. Well, why are they plummeting toward extinction? There's three reasons. There's urban development that's taking over much of their habitat. The habitat is being destroyed. Their habitats are also being destroyed by pesticide usage, and that means farmers in fields, but it also means people like you and me when we spray our yards for mosquitoes, or when our city sprays the city for mosquitoes. Every spray out there also hurts the monarchs. If somebody says that their spray doesn't hurt the butterflies, it's not likely to be true. All pesticides hurt the monarchs. And then the third big reason is climate change. So urbanization and habitat loss. Every time we cut down trees or take down a prairie and build homes, and those yards become very landscaped yards, we're losing places where the monarchs could have lived. When this happens in mass, it also takes out the monarch habitats in mass. It's a problem not just here in the United States, but it's also a problem across the world, including in the monarchs' wintering neighborhoods in the forests of Mexico. So there's a lot of logging down there, and the Mexican scientists that are trying to save the monarchs down there have a lot of pressures from different groups on them as well, and having trouble having success in saving those habitats down there. Pesticide usage. Not just agricultural, but home pesticide usage is killing monarchs. And on the top right, you'll see a picture of a handful of dead monarchs from a city coming through and spraying for mosquitoes. That was one resident who found all of those monarchs. So why focus on monarchs? Well, monarchs are one of the most tracked insects out there, or pollinators out there, and by tracking monarchs we can use them to make assumptions about other pollinator species as well. So the monarch's decline is a harbinger of widespread environmental change. The plummeting population of this butterfly, along with the decline of other butterflies and bees, threatens the well-being of people like us because the food security of humans is dependent on the ecological services that pollinators like the monarchs provide. So this is a quote from the Center for Biological Diversity, and I have the link here so you can go and read more about that if you'd like. Let's talk about the monarch life cycle. This is the part that I know the most about because I raise monarchs from egg to butterfly. So monarch butterflies, they only lay their eggs on the leaves of milkweed. And why don't they lay their eggs on other plants? Because they only eat milkweed. When the egg is ready to hatch, the tip appears black due to the head of the caterpillar showing through the egg. And when he's ready, he eats his way out of the egg. And what does he do when he gets out of his egg? He eats the empty egg shell. He'll also eat other full eggs, so I like to keep my eggs in a secured container away from other little monarchs. Once he's done eating that eggshell, he turns around and starts eating the milkweed that he was laid on. So it's important for him to have a milkweed source and to be on milkweed rather than other plants. Caterpillars eat and grow until they're too big for their skin, and then they attach their skin to a leaf and they walk out of it. You see in the photo on the right the skin that this caterpillar just walked out of. On the left you can see a caterpillar that's halfway walking out of his skin. That's called molting. Each caterpillar molts 4 times in its life, so it has 5 different stages of growth. And in this picture, you can see the 5 different stages. On the bottom right is stage 1. These are called instars, each of these stages. So the bottom right is first instar, and then if you see the numbers on the screen, you can see a caterpillar at the 5 different levels of instar. They are about 2 inches long when they're fully grown. And as I said before, caterpillars eat only one kind of food, and it is milkweed, which is not really a weed. It's a wildflower, and many people like to grow it in their gardens intentionally. It's very beautiful. Some of these pictures are just gorgeous. Why is it called milkweed? Well, when you break off a milkweed leaf, you can see the white milky sap inside the leaf. That milk, it's not milk, but that sap is toxic to humans and animals and insects, most insects. Monarch caterpillars are unique in that the milkweed is not toxic to them. But if you touch milkweed, please remember to wash your hands and especially be careful not to get any sap in your eyes. The really interesting thing about monarchs being able to eat this toxic milkweed is that the monarch caterpillar then becomes toxic to many of its predators. I think this is a cute little picture of this monarch eating and munching on this leaf. You can see the little munch marks on that leaf. Caterpillars eat so much that if humans, from the moment they were born for 2 weeks, ate as much as a caterpillar did, we would grow from the size of a baby to the size of a school bus. And that is how big, that's the growth that caterpillars experience. So after a caterpillar has grown and eaten for 2 weeks, the caterpillar attaches himself to a leaf, or in the case of my site, the inside of a monarch habitat, and then they hang down from that in a J so that he can pupate. So this guy that you're looking at is a lovely example of a caterpillar hanging in a J, and it's ready to change into a chrysalis. And this photo here shows the caterpillar going from the J to the chrysalis, and if you look from left to right, you'll notice that changing into a chrysalis is as simple as shedding his skin one last time. The second picture from the left, you can see a little bit of green poking out. That's where the skin has broken open and he's starting to wiggle that skin and moving the skin upward. And eventually, as you move from left to right, you can see the skin moving upward, and in most cases it falls off. And this process takes about 5 minutes. There's a link here for a short time-lapse video. I am not going to click on this link at this time, but I encourage you to go out to YouTube and watch this video. So once the caterpillar has made its chrysalis, he will stay in it for 10 to 13 days, maybe a little more or less depending on the climate that you live in. And the chrysalis will change colors during this time period. If you look at the one on the left, you can kind of see the wing pattern through the chrysalis, but it gets darker as it gets closer to eclosing, which is when it comes out of the chrysalis. So do you know what the difference is between a chrysalis and a cocoon? Well, chrysalis is specific to butterflies and cocoons are specific to moths. A chrysalis is formed when a butterfly caterpillar sheds its skin one last time. However, moth caterpillars actually spin silk outside of themselves. So it's based on the silk. Now, monarch butterfly caterpillars do spin a little bit of silk, but it's simply to attach itself to the branch above. Here's a series of photos of a butterfly, a monarch butterfly, eclosing or emerging from its chrysalis. On the left, you can see that the chrysalis has broken open slightly, and slowly the butterfly starts coming out of its chrysalis. It doesn't look, in the third or fourth picture, it doesn't look fully like the butterfly that you're used to seeing yet. Its thorax is very full of fluid and its wings are very crumpled. The butterfly in its first hours spends time pumping that fluid from its abdomen or thorax into its wings, and that is how the wings get straight and flattened out. So the butterfly needs quite a bit of time to do that and needs to be undisturbed during that part of its life. I also have a video of watching a monarch butterfly eclose from its chrysalis. I'm sure you can find one of those on YouTube as well, but we're going to skip that for today. This new butterfly will then hang on its empty chrysalis while he dries his wings and he pumps that fluid into those tiny little wings. So this is a photo of a number of butterflies that we had eclose on the same morning. It can be really fun to try to identify a butterfly's gender. On the right, there's a picture of a female butterfly and a male butterfly, and you'll notice that the male butterfly has 2 dots on the hind wings, and that the veins on the male butterfly are thinner than the veins on the female butterfly. So, what do monarch butterflies eat? Most people guess milkweed because that's what the caterpillars eat, but they do not eat milkweed. And in fact, in the first 24 hours, they don't eat anything. But then they eat nectar from a wide variety of nectar-bearing flowers like milkweed. So they don't actually eat the milkweed, but they will eat the nectar from it and many other types of flowers as well. Most monarch butterflies live only 2 to 6 weeks. And each year there are 4 generations. The last generation is called the Methuselah generation, and they usually live 6 to 8 months because they migrate all the way to Mexico in the fall. Here's a map of their migration. The yellow arrows show them coming back from Mexico, and the orange arrows show them going to Mexico and where they overwinter. You will also notice that there is a non-migratory population in Florida, and that on the western side of the continental divide, most of the monarchs are going to be overwintering in California along the coast rather than in Mexico. So how do we know they go to Mexico? Well, because some people have been putting tags on butterflies. I believe this started in the 1990s. Scientists in Mexico have searched for these tagged butterflies in the forests where they overwinter down there. It's a very localized place where they're wintering, so it's not hard for the scientists to find the majority of those butterflies. So they've tracked them, and people in the north are tagging the butterflies and submitting them to a national database or an international database. And this is a photo here on the left of one of the butterflies that we tagged here at Croixdale last year. How can we help the monarchs? Well, one of the most important things is to plant lots of milkweed. With their habitat disappearing, getting more milkweed in the ground is becoming more and more important every day. We can teach our friends and family to plant milkweed as well. We can also encourage public land managers to protect and create monarch habitats. We can adopt monarch caterpillars, bring them inside, help them live longer by raising them inside and releasing them at the moment they become an adult butterfly. And we can financially support monarch conservation efforts. And something that you may already be doing is planting native flowers that help feed the butterflies. So if you're doing that, thank you. And if not, maybe consider planting some flowers in your yard to help attract them. So the community where I work has been committed to helping the monarch butterflies. And last year, 2020, we did a number of different things. We converted a 1/3 acre of our grass landscaping into a native wildflower garden to help promote the pollinators and to grow milkweed. We grew milkweed from seed and we transplanted these seedlings into our new wildflower garden. I should also note that we are a senior community, so all of these efforts were done by senior citizens. We applied for and we won a grant of milkweed plants that we planted in our wildflower garden. We collected more milkweed seeds and we shared them with local Girl Scout groups and school children and visitors. And as far as monarchs directly go, we collected 180 monarch eggs locally and we fed them indoors, fed them milkweed. We fostered them into butterflies. They eclosed from their chrysalides and we released them back into the wild. Without our help, probably only about 10 of them would have survived. And we also installed a live web camera to share with people around the world and get the word out about our monarch caterpillars. You can see that link is on YouTube. Just search for Croixdale Monarchs. Here are a couple photos of what we were doing. There's a picture of our building on the left, and you can see the yellow outline of the area that we transferred into a native habitat. And the photo on the right is a couple of our residents getting some of the first milkweed plants in there. Doesn't look too spectacular at this point, but this is what it looked like late in the season, and it looks very similar to that today. In the winter, we planted milkweed seeds in mini greenhouses made out of old milk jugs and toilet paper rolls. We left them outside to stratify over the winter. And in the spring, we had baby milkweed plants that we planted in our wildflower garden. You can do this too. It's very similar. Just gather some milkweed in the fall and you're on your way. This is what a milkweed pod looks like. You can plant them in the fall right away, or you can wait for the spring, but if you store them, they do need to freeze during the winter so that they can stratify. So only 3 to 5% of monarch eggs survive to become butterflies when you leave them out in the wild. That's a very low percent, 3 to 5%. They face many predators, and a lot of people are bringing monarch eggs indoors and raising them indoors where they're safe from predators and then releasing them as an adult butterfly into the wild so that they can procreate. Bringing them indoors, you can increase their survival rate to 95%. I already told you that we raised 180 of them last year, so with lots of people doing this across the nation, we're making a big impact on the survival of the monarchs. You can find eggs on the back sides of milkweed leaves. And at the very top, there's the shoots of the plant. You can look there too. There are oftentimes little baby caterpillars up on the shoots. The eggs are small and white, and they're easily confused with sap balls and other small white objects that you find on milkweed. You don't really need a microscope to see them, but we like to look through this children's microscope. It makes it more fun, and it's educational that way. I like to keep our monarch eggs in small plastic containers individually, and then I move them into larger containers in a community as the monarchs grow in size. When the small caterpillars are together, sometimes they don't see each other and they accidentally cannibalize. So I've found that this helps increase my numbers when I keep them separately. The container on your left is like a condiment container that you might get with takeout. So an enclosure for a caterpillar should be large enough for the butterfly to safely open its wings. Ideally, a glass container is not the best container, but when I first started, we used a vase like this for just raising 1 or 2 caterpillars, and that worked just fine until the butterfly emerges, and then it needs something that's more netted so that it can climb the sides and get back to the top while it's drying. This is the enclosure that I'm currently using. You don't need one this large to foster just a few caterpillars. We use floral tubes to keep our milkweed cuttings fresh, but there are lots of different ways to do that. And like I said, we don't like to mix the large caterpillars with small ones because they will cannibalize. Sometimes caterpillars will wander away from the milkweed when they're in the enclosure. You do not need to pick them up and return them to their food. They know what they're doing. They're usually doing that to molt, and to pick up a caterpillar and move it could hurt it. I recommend never ever touching your caterpillars. I will touch the stem that a caterpillar is on if I need to move it, but I don't lift the caterpillar off the stem or the leaf. I just move the entire thing if I need to move it. There's a picture of me moving a caterpillar on its stem. I'd like to remind people to please release your butterfly within 12 to 24 hours of when it emerges or ecloses. They don't eat in the first 24 hours, so you don't need to feed him anything. If you do happen to keep it longer than 24 hours, a little bit of Gatorade on a cotton ball should work just fine. Some pictures that I took. My very first chrysalis, my very first butterfly. Just like a baby, they had a lot of pictures taken of them. So here at Croixdale, we like to name our butterflies after somebody who's deceased. We say a prayer over it, and then we also encourage the residents here to help with all the parts of our monarch program, from finding eggs or bringing in milkweed to cleaning the enclosures to releasing the butterflies. And this is the prayer that we say over our butterflies. And now I'm going to share a few more pictures. Some family members getting involved with the butterfly release during COVID. And sometimes they come back and they land on us. They're friendly little creatures when they're new. This one didn't want to fly away too quickly. He hung out on her finger for a little while. So last year we released 180 butterflies, not on the same day. That was over the course of the entire summer. Here's a butterfly that I released at a former site at Norris Square, and we named this one after this man's wife, Penny, and she landed on his forehead and stayed there for about 5 minutes. We said she was kissing him goodbye. He was so touched he had tears rolling down his cheeks. If you look closely, you can see one. It's fun doing this at a senior living facility because we have lots of residents that come and keep track of the progress, but we have family members and visitors as well who like to get involved, and sometimes we even have community members coming in to check it all out. So now that you know about monarch butterflies, who can you teach how to save the monarchs? If you'd like to learn more about Croixdale's program, you can reach out to me My contact links are available on YouTube. And I'd like to suggest that if you know a young person who's looking for an Eagle Scout or Girl Scout Gold Award project idea, monarch conservation or milkweed conservation would be an excellent idea. You can suggest that to the young people in your life. If you want to learn more, I suggest going to monarchwatch.com, or there's a Facebook group called The Beautiful Monarch that is a fabulous way to ask your questions and get great answers. And you can take out your cell phone and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow Croixdale on Facebook. We have lots of photos of what we're doing with our monarchs out there. I'd love to have you following us. Questions? Feel free to reach out to me. Thank you for being a part of this presentation today, and if you have any comments, please feel free to reach out to me.